The moment the judge called me a little waitress who watched too many legal shows, the courtroom laughed like it was a punchline. But I didn't laugh. I felt my stomach drop because I wasn't there to entertain them. I was there to stop an innocent woman from losing her child. Then the judge looked at my uniform, smirked, and said, "Sit down, Miss Coffee." So I stood up anyway, and I changed the whole case in 3 sentences. My name is Olivia Hart. For most people, that name doesn't mean anything. But in the legal world, at least the one I used to live in, it used to mean promising, brilliant, Harvard, and future partner. Now, it meant something else. Table 6 wants more bread. Table 9 says their soup is cold. Olivia, you forgot extra ranch again. That was my life now. Not because I failed. Not because I wasn't smart enough. Because I didn't feel safe being Olivia Hart, attorney anymore. And on the day the judge humiliated me in open court, I realized hiding had a price too. I was working the morning shift at Harbor and Honey, a cozy little cafe near the courthouse in Westbridge. I'd taken the job because it was steady, and because no one in this town looked twice at a waitress with a ponytail and an apron. That was the point. I'd built a new version of myself: soft voice, small presence, easy smile, Olivia the waitress. A woman who didn't argue, didn't push, didn't challenge powerful men. But every day I poured coffee for lawyers who strutted in like they owned the world. I could feel the old fire in my chest trying to wake up. Then she walked in. Her name was Maya Brooks. She looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. Her hands shook when she took her wallet out. She wore a hoodie even though it wasn't cold. And when she asked for water, it wasn't like she was thirsty, it was like she was trying not to break down. I brought her water and said, gently, "Are you okay?" Her eyes filled instantly. "No," she whispered. I'm not." I glanced around. The cafe was busy, judges, clerks, attorneys. It wasn't a place for tears. I lowered my voice. "Do you want to sit somewhere quieter?" She nodded like she didn't trust herself to speak. I led her to a small booth near the back, and before I could even ask again, she blurted, "They're taking my daughter." That sentence hit me like a slap. "What?" I asked. "My ex," she said, voice cracking. "His name is Ethan Caldwell. He filed for emergency custody, and his lawyer is saying I'm unstable, unfit, dangerous. They're making me look like I'm crazy." I felt my jaw tighten without permission. Caldwell. Name wasn't just familiar. It was personal. Years ago, I worked at Harrison and Vale, one of those shiny glass firms that made young lawyers feel like they'd made it. I was the first in my family to go to college, scholarships, part-time jobs, late nights. I fought for every inch, and when I got into Harvard Law, I thought life finally opened its doors. It did, and then it slammed them on my fingers. At Harrison and Vale, I was the only young woman in my group who didn't have a rich father, a country club network, or a fiancé with a last name that mattered. I had my mind, my work ethic, and a spine. That's what bothered them most. Ethan Caldwell was a rising star in the business world. Clean suit, perfect hair, charming in a way that made older women laugh and younger women blush. He dated my colleague Cassandra Pierce, a senior associate who treated me like I was a mosquito she couldn't swat. Cassandra hated me because I didn't flatter her. Ethan hated me because I saw through him. I noticed things: missing numbers in contracts, weird consulting fees, a trail of shell companies, and when I quietly brought it to the attention of a partner, I was told I was being dramatic. 2 weeks later, Cassandra called me into a conference room, smiling too brightly. "Olivia," she said, "I'm going to give you a piece of advice. Don't go digging where you don't belong." Then my office keycard stopped working. They said I violated confidentiality and was no longer a cultural fit. My name was quietly smeared, my job offers dried up, and one night, someone slid an envelope under my apartment door. Inside was a photo of me walking alone, and a note that said, "Stop, or you'll lose more than your career." After that, I left. New town, new job, new name on my resume, and I swore I'd never step into that world again. But now Maya Brooks was sitting across from me, terrified, and Ethan Caldwell was trying to take her child. So maybe my hiding was over. I asked Maya, "When is the hearing?" She swallowed. "Today. In 2 hours." My stomach flipped. "Do you have a lawyer?" She laughed weakly, like the sound hurt. "I can't afford one. Ethan can. He has a whole firm behind him." I stared at her. "What are they accusing you of?" Maya's voice shook. "They're saying I'm an addict, that I left my daughter alone, that I'm unstable. They even had a neighbor sign something saying I scream at night." My hands curled around the edge of the table. Is any of it true? I asked softly. No, she said, too fast, panicked. I cried. Yeah, I've been stressed, but I'm not a danger. I'm a mom. I work 2 jobs. My daughter is my whole life. Her eyes dropped to her hands. Ethan said if I'd just stop fighting, he'll let me see her sometimes. That wasn't a custody case. That was a threat. I looked at Maya and made a decision that scared me. I'm coming with you, I said. She blinked. What? Why? Because I knew Ethan. Because I knew his type. Because I knew what happens when powerful men decide a woman is disposable. Because I was done watching. I said, I can't be your lawyer officially right now, but I can help. I can't let you walk in alone. Maya's voice broke. You don't even know me. I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I told the truth. I'm not just a waitress, I said quietly. I used to be a lawyer. Her eyes widened. A lawyer? I nodded. And I think I know exactly who you're up against. The courthouse smelled like paper, cheap coffee, and nerves. Maya clutched a folder of documents like it was a life raft. I walked beside her in my cafe uniform, because I didn't have time to change and, honestly, I didn't want to. Let them judge me. In the hallway outside Courtroom 3, I saw Ethan. He looked the same, not older, not tired, just polished. Beside him stood Cassandra Pierce, still sharp as a knife, and behind them was a confident young attorney with a smug grin. Ethan's eyes flicked to me, and he recognized me. I saw it, the tiny pause, the quick calculation, the slight tightening at the corners of his mouth. Then his face turned into a smile that made my skin crawl. Well, he said loudly, for the hallway to hear, if it isn't Olivia Hart. Cassandra laughed. Olivia? That Olivia? The young attorney glanced at my apron and smirked. Guess Harvard didn't work out. Heat rose in my face, but my voice stayed calm. Hi, Ethan. He leaned in like we were old friends. What are you doing here? Serving coffee to the judge. That's poetic. Maya stiffened beside me. Ethan looked her up and down like she was something stuck to his shoe. Oh, you brought a friend. Cute. He turned to me again. Let me give you some advice, Olivia. This doesn't concern you. I met his eyes. It concerns me when a mother is being bullied. His smile sharpened. Careful, you don't have a license anymore, right? Would be a shame if someone accused you of practicing without one. Cassandra's eyes glittered. Olivia always liked pretending she belonged in rooms she didn't. Maya whispered, Olivia, please. I squeezed her hand. Let's go inside, I said. The courtroom felt colder than it should have. Judge Randall Mercer sat high on the bench like a king in a robe. He was older, with silver hair and a permanent expression of annoyance, like life itself was wasting his time. Ethan's team sat with confidence. Maya sat alone with me, looking like she wanted to disappear. When the case started, Ethan's attorney stood up, smooth as oil. He painted Maya as reckless, emotional, unstable. He pulled out screenshots of a late-night text where Maya wrote, I can't do this anymore. He called it suicidal ideation. He showed a photo of her apartment messy after a long weekend, called it unsafe living conditions. Then, he brought in a neighbor, Mr. Larkin, who claimed he heard Maya screaming and throwing things. Maya whispered, he hates me because I reported him for parking in my spot. I believed her, but belief isn't evidence. The judge turned to Maya. Ms. Brooks, do you have legal representation? Maya's throat worked. No, Your Honor. Judge Mercer sighed loudly. So you came into a custody hearing alone. Maya started to speak, and her voice cracked. I'm trying. The judge waved a hand. Spare me. This court is not a therapy session. I felt my pulse in my ears. I raised my hand slightly. Your Honor. The judge looked at me, irritated. And who are you? I'm Olivia Hart, I said, standing. His eyes dropped to my apron. The corner of his mouth lifted. What is this? He said, voice dripping with disdain. A catering service. The courtroom laughed. My cheeks burned. I could feel Maya shrinking. I kept my voice steady. Your Honor, I'm here to support Ms. Brooks, and to ensure. He cut me off. Support? You mean coach her? Are you an attorney? A beat of silence. I could have said no and sat down, stayed safe, stayed invisible. But I looked at Maya, her hands shaking, her eyes wet, her whole life being decided by people who didn't care if she survived it. And I thought about the note under my door years ago. I thought about how fear turned me into someone smaller. So I said, clearly, yes. The courtroom shifted. Judge Mercer raised his brows. Really? He leaned forward like he was inspecting a bug. And where is your suit, Ms. Attorney? Where is your bar card? Because you look like you just came from refilling someone's iced tea. More laughter. Ethan smiled, satisfied. Ethan smiled, satisfied. Judge Mercer said, "Sit down. I won't have this circus in my courtroom." My heart hammered, but my voice came out calm, almost cold. "Your Honor," I said, with respect, "your assumption about my job has nothing to do with the facts of this case." His expression hardened. "Excuse me," I took a breath. "This is an emergency custody hearing based on claims of addiction, neglect, and instability," I said. "Yet the petitioner has provided no drug test, no medical records, and no direct evidence of neglect, only hearsay and character attacks." The room went quiet. Judge Mercer stared at me. "And you are?" I met his eyes. "Harvard Law, class of 2018, former associate at Harrison and Vale, and I know the petitioner Mr. Caldwell has a history of using the courts to intimidate women into compliance." Ethan's smile vanished. Cassandra sat up sharply. The judge's face shifted surprise, then annoyance. "You are not counsel of record," Judge Mercer snapped. "I'm not," I agreed, "but Ms. Brooks has the right to present relevant questions and evidence, and if she doesn't know how, she'll be steamrolled." Maya whispered Olivia. I turned to her softly. "Do you trust me?" She hesitated, then nodded once. I looked back at the judge. "May I ask a few questions as a friend assisting her? Or would you prefer Ms. Brooks stumble through alone?" The judge's jaw tightened. He hated being challenged, but he also hated looking unfair in public. He said, sharply, 5 minutes, and if you waste my time, you're out." I nodded. "Thank you, Your Honor." Ethan's attorney smirked like he still thought this was nothing. He was wrong. I stood and faced the neighbor witness. "Mr. Larkin," I said, "you claim you heard Ms. Brooks screaming at night. How many times?" He shrugged. "Lots." "Specific number?" I pressed. "I don't know. Enough." I nodded. "What's your address?" He gave it. I pulled out my phone and held it up. "So you live 2 floors below her?" He hesitated. "Yeah. And you claim you can clearly identify her voice through 2 floors and closed doors." He frowned. I continued, "You also told the police officer responding to a noise complaint on October 3rd that you didn't know who it was. Do you remember that?" His face went pale. "What?" Murmurs started. I turned to the judge. "Your Honor, may I submit the police report?" Judge Mercer's eyes narrowed. "You have it." I looked at Maya. She blinked in shock, then quickly opened her folder because I'd told her in the hallway to print every report she'd ever filed, even if she thought it didn't matter. She handed it to the clerk with shaking hands. Mr. Larkin stammered. "That's not," I asked. "Mr. Larkin, isn't it true Miss Brooks reported you for harassment? For blocking her car? For yelling at her in front of her child?" He snapped. "She's a liar." I turned my head slightly. Calm. "So you're an unbiased witness, while calling her a liar." The judge's mouth tightened. I wasn't done. I faced Ethan's attorney. "Drug test." He blinked. "Excuse me, you're claiming she's an addict," I said. "Do you have a drug test?" He shifted. "We have reason to believe. Do you have a drug test?" I repeated. "No," he admitted. I looked at the judge. "Then we're talking about speculation." Ethan leaned forward and hissed, "This is ridiculous." I ignored him and turned to Maya, gently. "Maya, tell the court what you do for work." Maya's voice shook, but she spoke. "I'm a dental assistant, and I clean offices at night." I nodded. "And do you have a record of attendance?" "Pay stubs." She handed them over. I said, "This is a woman working 2 jobs, not a woman partying or disappearing. The petitioner is using vague claims to take her child." Ethan's attorney stood quickly. "Objection characterization." Judge Mercer hesitated. I looked directly at Ethan. "May I ask the petitioner a question?" I said. The courtroom held its breath. Judge Mercer exhaled, like this was a headache. "One question." I stepped forward. "Ethan," I said, voice steady, "when was the last time you spent a full weekend caring for your daughter alone?" His eyes widened. "That's irrelevant." I held my gaze. Judge Mercer said, "Answer." Ethan's face flushed. I don't recall." I nodded slowly. "Yet you want emergency custody." Then I did the one thing he didn't expect. I reached into my bag and pulled out a thin folder I'd carried for years. The one I promised myself I'd never open again. "Your Honor," I said, "the petitioner's credibility is central to this case, and I believe the court should know he has a documented pattern of manipulation and financial misconduct." Cassandra stood. "Objection. This is unrelated." Judge Mercer frowned. "Ms. Hart, you're skating on thin ice." My hands trembled but my voice didn't. "I used to work at the firm that handled Mr. Caldwell's business matters. I said, and I saved copies of communications that were deleted after I raised concerns. Ethan's face went white. The judge said, "What communications?" I opened the folder and held up a printed email chain. "I won't quote it," I said, "but it references making her look unstable, dragging this out until she folds, and using court pressure to win." The courtroom went silent in a way that felt like air being sucked out. Ethan stood abruptly. That's stolen." I looked at him, calm. "It's evidence." Judge Mercer's expression changed, not kind, not warm, but alert, the way a man looks when he realizes something is real. He said, slowly, "Bailiff, approach. Counsel, approach." Everyone crowded the bench. I stayed back with Maya, who was shaking so hard her teeth clicked. She whispered, "Olivia, what did you do?" I whispered back. I stopped hiding. After a tense sidebar, Judge Mercer returned to the bench. His voice was clipped. "This hearing is no longer proceeding as originally scheduled." Ethan's lawyer protested. Cassandra looked furious. Judge Mercer said, "Given the lack of direct evidence against the risk and the seriousness of allegations raised regarding the petitioner's motives, I am ordering a temporary arrangement." Maya's breath caught. "Ms. Brooks retains primary custody," he continued, "with supervised visitation from Mr. Caldwell pending further review." Ethan exploded. "Supervised? That's insane." The judge's eyes flashed. "Mr. Caldwell, one more outburst and you'll be held in contempt." Then he looked at Maya. "Ms. Brooks, you will undergo a voluntary drug screening within 72 hours to clear your name." Maya nodded quickly, tears pouring. The judge looked at Ethan. "And Mr. Caldwell, you will provide financial disclosures relevant to child support and any business dealings that could impact this matter." Cassandra's face tightened like she'd swallowed a lemon. Could see it in Ethan's eyes. Panic, because he thought he was untouchable. And in that moment, he wasn't. Outside the courtroom, Maya collapsed against the wall and sobbed. I wrapped my arms around her like I'd known her for years. I was so scared. She cried. "I thought I was going to lose her." "You're not," I said. "Not today." Ethan stormed out behind us. He stopped inches from me, close enough that I smelled his expensive cologne. His voice was low and sharp. "You should have stayed gone." I looked at him, steady. "You should have stayed honest." Cassandra stepped forward, eyes bright with hate. "You think you won. You're a waitress, Olivia. You have nothing." I smiled, small and dangerous. "I have my brain," I said, "and I have receipts." Ethan's face twitched. "You don't understand what you're doing." "Oh, I do," I said softly. "And you're going to understand it too." Then I walked away with Maya head high, apron still on, heart pounding like a drum. That night, after my shift, I sat in my tiny apartment and stared at my old bar prep books. I hadn't opened them in years. Fear had made me small, but something else was louder now. Anger, purpose, and a strange, bright relief. I called the state bar the next morning. I asked what it would take to reinstate. It would take time, paperwork, a hearing. But for the first time in a long time, I wanted it not for prestige, not for money. For women like Maya. For girls like her daughter. For the version of me that didn't deserve to be silenced. 2 months later, Ethan's emergency custody case fell apart. The drug test came back clean. The neighbor's testimony was exposed as retaliatory. Ethan's financial disclosures revealed inconsistencies, and the court ordered a deeper review. And when Maya stood in front of the judge again, this time with a real legal aid attorney, sat in the back row, not as a waitress, not as a circus, as a witness, as proof that intimidation only works when people stay quiet. After the hearing, Maya hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. "You saved us," she whispered. I shook my head. "No. You fought." I just reminded the room you deserved to be heard. She pulled back, smiling through tears. "So what now?" I smiled back. "Now I stop hiding. If you've ever been judged by your job, your clothes, your past, or the way you look, remember this. People love to underestimate women until we stand up. If this story hit your heart, tap like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, have you ever been judged unfairly, and what did you do about it? Because sometimes the strongest revenge isn't destruction, it's rising, where they told you to stay small. It's rising, where they told you to stay small.